If reports are to be believed, Lucasfilm is relying heavily on the upcoming live-action Star Wars show, The Mandalorian, to reinvigorate the love of Star Wars in the fandom. We've got to break all of this down. This is the Nerdy News Rundown. Let's get you filled in. Before we get into this story, I need to shout out Erica Stones, who got the nerd card question correct in my Superman DC video from yesterday. You definitely know your stuff when it comes to DC shows, so shout out to you, Erica. We'll, of course, do another nerd card question at the end of this video. Oh, and a side note, Erica, your Nerdy News Rundown mug and your Raylo shirt are on the way. I don't know why it's taking so long. I don't even have my Nerdy News Rundown mug back yet either. All right, guys, so let's get into this. Comicbook.com did an article that popped up on my little Google thing yesterday talking about how Star Wars and Lucasfilm is apparently heavily relying on The Mandalorian to reinvigorate the love in the fan base. Now, the article actually makes a reference to another article, which comes from a site known as The Blast. I've got to be honest, I've never heard of The Blast before, ever. Either way, The Blast claims to have documents that prove that Lucasfilm is going after some very heavy merchandising when it comes to The Mandalorian, and comicbook.com makes the case that this is a very early step for Lucasfilm to be doing this, which kind of proves that, yeah, they're really relying on this show to reinvigorate the love of Star Wars within the fan base. Now, I want to keep it real with you guys. There's nothing in either one of these articles that points to, in my opinion, a definitive call by Lucasfilm to be doing this. There's nothing in these articles that prove that Lucasfilm feels this way about The Mandalorian, or that Lucasfilm feels that Star Wars needs saved in general. There's nothing in these articles that actually prove that. It's nothing but speculation. And even though this is the current state of journalism, this is something that I hate that the media does when it comes to Star Wars and the narrative that is going on with it. I can't help but also feel that they're just saying what most of us are thinking. And so I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it go that there's really nothing of substance in these articles that point to this. And let's speculate about this for a little bit here. So I don't think it's a secret that Disney is pulling out all of the stops for The Mandalorian. I mean, if you look at this director list, it's absurd. I mean, first of all, you have Dave Filoni doing the pilot. If that doesn't get you excited, check your pulse. You've got Bryce Dallas Howard, you've got Taika Waititi, among many other all-star directors going to be doing episodes of The Mandalorian. That's a lot of talent and a lot of paychecks that Disney is putting out there. The budget's also insane. Some people speculated it's as much as $150 million. It's at least over $100 million for probably what will end up being 10 episodes. That's about $10 million per episode. That's on the level of Game of Thrones nowadays. Game of Thrones didn't start out with that kind of a budget, but now, obviously being one of the most, if not the most popular show on the planet, it's got a massive budget. So you're talking about just an insane budget for the show. The time period that the show is taking place in and the lore that seems to surround it is also crazy. I mean, you've got Tatooine, you've got the Mandalorians. They literally put up Boba and Jango Fett in that statement that Jon Favreau made. I mean, that's mass appeal stuff. It's really in the vein of the nostalgic Star Wars fan, the nostalgic Star Wars experience. Now, I would make the argument that this was always going to be the case. This has nothing to do with what happened in the fan base after The Last Jedi. This has more to do with a big play by Disney to get subscribers for their streaming service. Streaming is definitely the future of entertainment, and Disney is making this massive play to try to get people to give some money to them each month to have this kind of a service. I mean, this type of a show is going to be incredible and a big draw for Star Wars fans. And so while I think Disney is pulling out all of these stops and it's going to be absolutely incredible, it is not necessarily because of what happened to the fan base after The Last Jedi, but it's super convenient that they were making a play like this at a time when, Star Wars is in the state that it is in. But wait a minute, Josh, I thought you weren't going to talk about that negative state of Star Wars fan base anymore. Hey, hear me out. Like I said, I don't want to try to take political angles on these things or try to profit off of the negativity that's out there. But I mean, let's just be real. Things are kind of shaky right now. And I want to get into that a little bit more at the end of the video, but let's just continue on this train of thought here. Now, I think when you look at all of the films that have come out for Lucasfilm and Disney Star Wars, you could make the argument that they were doing a one two punch technique, sort of giving something for the new fans, kind of a soft reboot in The Force Awakens, then sort of paying homage to the old fans, giving you sort of a nostalgic ride with Rogue One. Then you have The Last Jedi, which attempts to do the same thing as The Force Awakens, really pave new ground, push towards the newer fans. And then you do the Han Solo thing, which again is supposed to be for the nostalgic fans. Now, those last two, I don't think really nailed what they were trying to do, but I think it's pretty clear that Disney recognizes that there is an older set of fans and there is a newer set of fans, and they are trying to appease both of them. Now, when it comes to The Mandalorian, I truly believe that that is set in a time period and has the type of characters in it that really plays more towards the nostalgic fan, which is arguably a much bigger fan base than the newer fans. So I think that The Mandalorian is definitely going to be appetizing to those types of fans that like the original trilogy, that really like that kind of Star Wars. I think it's really going to play to them as well. That's not to say that it won't have stuff for newer fans. I think newer fans will really enjoy what's going on over there as well, but it does seem that the content is geared towards the older fans. Now, when you couple that with the fact that we are getting a Star Wars slowdown, according to Bob Iger, which to me just means they're going to take their time before figuring out what films to do next, I think we're going to be in a scenario here where The Mandalorian is the only live-action Star Wars content that we will have over a period of time. So there'll be long gaps in between the next couple of movies, and to fill those gaps will be The Mandalorian. And I think that that content is going to be super mass appeal. People are going to really, really enjoy it. And so in a weird way, even though I don't think this was the plan, it's not like Disney was like, oh, we need to make a show to save Star Wars and save the Star Wars fan base. I do think that the timing of all of this is actually really good, and it will lead us to a place where the fandom will sort of get put back together and be in a better place. Now, when it comes to Episode 9, it's a little bit different. I actually do think there is an effort being made by Lucasfilm and Disney and JJ to sort of return to form with Star Wars Episode 9. I think when you look at The Last Jedi, even if you take all of the hate away from it, which, wow, that would be amazing if we could actually do that, but I think when you just look at it objectively, even people that love the movie like myself can completely admit that it was a departure from the regular type of Star Wars movie that Star Wars fans are used to. And honestly, I think that's okay. You need to sort of step outside. You need to do new things. You need to experiment. That's just what you need to do with franchises that are this old. Inevitably, not everyone's going to like it. And I think inevitably, you got to go back to form. You dance outside the lines a little bit, but you got to come back to form. And I think that that is what JJ is going to do. I mean, he's going to return to the tone that he set up in 7. I think that he's going to wrap things up for these new characters and for the Skywalkers and the entire saga in a really great way. I mean, it's repeated often, but he and Chris Terrio are apparently trying to wrap up all the Star Wars movies in Episode 9, and it's being billed as the end to the Skywalker saga. That's great. It's marketable. It makes a lot of sense. And I think that Lucasfilm, I mean, they're very smart people at that company. They realize that reception of The Last Jedi is what it is, and they're going to sort of return to form with Episode 9. And I think getting JJ is a huge part of that, because honestly, JJ should have done all of the movies in this saga. I know that was his decision really not to do that, but a lot of people, I think, once again, can objectively point to the fact that having different writers and directors handle different parts of the saga was likely not the best idea. Now, remember, JJ was named the director of Episode 9 before The Last Jedi ever came out. So there's no way Lucasfilm would have known how the reception of the film would be for fans. And so, once again, it is not majorly to put things back together, but it is super convenient that they have the guy that did The Force Awakens to close out this saga. Like I said, I think it's really going to help. And so I say all of this to kind of get to the point that, you know, even though this article doesn't have a lot of substance, either at comicbook.com or at The Blast, I think the sentiment is completely understandable. We want to put things back together. People want to just have fun and enjoy their Star Wars. And I think with The Mandalorian, you're going to have that. It is really going to be a linchpin in the process that is putting that fan base back together. It's going to be amazing. I also think that Episode 9 will do its part to bring things back together, and it'll be a much more widely accepted film than The Last Jedi. And when you combine that with the last season of the Clone Wars coming back and some of the exciting stuff that's likely to happen next when it comes to novels and comics, I think we are going to be getting out of this kind of very hateful pit that we are in right now. Now, the last thing I want to say before I get out of here is that Star Wars Theory, which is the biggest YouTube channel on Star Wars, recently did a video where he talks about the hate and the toxicity within the Star Wars fan base. I highly recommend everybody watch that video if you have not. It echoes a lot of the things that I said in my video where I said I was going to quit making Star Wars content. And just in general, I think that we're starting to, as a fan base, come around to a more reasonable perspective for how to take our criticisms and how to voice the opinions that we have about the Star Wars content. As Star Wars Theory goes on to explain in his video, Star Wars fans are very passionate. We really care deeply about this property and about these stories. And I get that. I think that's fine. But, I mean, think about what happened to George Lucas because of the hate of the prequels. Think about what happened to Jake Lloyd because of the hate for the prequels. I mean, it's just, it can really get out of hand. And I think that people need to be more aware of how that can manifest itself out there. Hate is not the answer. Anger is not the answer. State your opinions and hold fast to what you believe in. But there is a better way to approach this thing. And I think that, you know, with people like Star Wars Theory coming out and saying this, with sort of this channel over here trying to do its part, we're going to get to a better place. You're allowed to feel how you feel, but how you express those feelings, I think, speaks volumes of who you are as a person, and it represents the Star Wars fan base. And as a person within the Star Wars fan base, I would just ask you, like, stop making us look bad. Like, other fandoms are looking over at Star Wars right now and being like, what the hell's going on over there? And, you know, it's a complicated question. It's a complicated answer, but overall, like, let's get our crap together. But that is the news out there, guys. Reports that are pretty flimsy, in my opinion, suggest that The Mandalorian is supposed to put the fan base back together and that Lucasfilm is relying on this show to fix the Star Wars fan base. Do you agree that this is what is going to happen? If you're one of the people that doesn't like Star Wars right now, are you going to check out The Mandalorian? Are you pumped about it? Whatever you're thinking about Star Wars and the fan base and the media and everything, let me know in the comment section below. Now let's check that nerd card before we get out of here. I want to know, what is the model of ship that Boba Fett and Jango Fett fly around in? The name of the ship is Slave One, but that's not the model. I want to know, what is that ship's model? Answer that question in the comment section below. And that's going to do it for the Wednesday show. You're halfway through this work week. Man, you're going to make it. I promise you. By the way, I don't know where you guys are at, but it's starting to get real chilly here in Philadelphia, but we'll make it, and we'll make it together. As I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and nerdy day, and I will see you in the next video.